Before we get started, just want to let you know that we had a little technical difficulty with the video. Audio wasn't affected. Now, on to the episode.
Welcome to What's in Your Data.
Brought to you by Melissa. My name is Daniel Lee, and I'm the Chief Data Wrangler at Melissa.
My name is Anna Chong, and I'm a software engineer team lead here at Melissa.
Ayah, ayah, ayah.
Oh no, here we go again.
What, you haven't heard the new martial arts cry?
No.
Ayah, it means AI, yeah, AI, yeah.
Okay, so that's our topic for today, it seems.
I think so. Ayah, yeah, ayah. Okay.
Oh Lord, AI.
AI.
Okay.
I.
Yes. Well, we do have a special guest joining us to talk about AI.
Oh, yes.
Should we go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah, well, let's let him introduce himself.
All right.
All right. Hello. You're welcome to What's in Your Data? Brought to you by Melissa.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Anna. Really glad to be here. That was quite an opening. I am looking forward to getting into the AI today. So, and actually, we're really thinking about AI for data quality for AI. So, it's a fun place to be. It's a really important place to be. I'm Bob Stanley. I'm the Senior Director of Special Projects at Melissa. It's a lot of fun. What do you think? Should I kind of go into what I'm up to, or how would you guys like us to move on this?
But yeah, what tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. What do you do, and what kind of special projects are you working on, Melissa?
Yeah. Well, I've actually been with Melissa now for just about almost exactly 10 years. Came in early 2017. In terms of background, I have a master's where I focused in from University of Chicago in these kind of esoteric concepts of epistemology and ontologies and semantics and inference, and all this has tied into me receiving a few patents in the AI space, particularly focusing in machine reasoning and semantic inference, and lots of publications in the space. It's been just such a gift to be working with Melissa over the years. I love that role. I'm working most closely with Bud Walker, who's the CIO, and Greg Brown, who I think you guys probably know, VP Marketing, but also engaging a lot with external analysts like Gartner and others, checking in with engineering regularly. So really, one of my main roles is to help, I'll say, inform and align, sort of connect sales and market visioning and messaging with technical and engineering direction, right? So going back and forth between Bud and Greg, and then meeting with John Miller and engineering teams like that. So making sure we're selling what we're developing what we're selling, right? That our technical direction is at least reasonably informed by customer market and analyst feedback. There's a lot of different expertise on that, so I'm not leading that. That's just part of my feeding in a little information. Also, really enjoyed special projects like Gartner Magic Quadrant, something that we've done over years, vendor briefings, roadmap development with Bud, and a lot of webinars and that sort of thing with Greg. So it's just been a lot of fun working with Melissa. And I also want to give a shout out to Phil Lubitich. I love participating in his AI forum at Melissa. That's a really sharp little group that's I think great for the company, and it's been good for me. So
Yeah.
here I am. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like you have a lot of juggling that you're doing here with AI, and just wanted to know how did you get into it? Like, why do you like working with AI?
I've always been interested in these sort of deeper questions like how do we know things? How do we learn? How do we communicate across different domains of expertise? Um, But I'll say what I really am loving about AI is it's just really powerful technology, and it's still fairly early deployment. And here's where the rubber hits the road. Different AI tools are making tedious tasks a lot more efficient and easier to complete. Uh, I have a feeling you probably share this with me. Like I really love to be in a more intentional, goal-oriented space, focusing on business outcomes and where I want to be in my life, rather than sort of wading through messy, error-filled data, trying to piece together disconnected data sets. I'm just kind of seeking clear, useful results, right? And AI can really help reduce time and effort to achieve that sort of data quality you need to do your business projects. This is what I mean when I talk about DQ for AI for DQ. So you need to have data quality for AI to be effective, right? But you can use AI to help make data quality. And so I just love that interface in that space. And what I really love the most about AI is it's doing work that I don't love doing, and it's helping me focus on what I do love doing.
Well, Bob, so you mentioned data quality and AI and data quality. You start your background's in epistemology and ontologies. What are the relationships between all of that, between your studies, your background, and then now your work in data quality and AI?
Well, I don't want to be trivial, but this has been such a persistent, you could say perennial challenge. It's this classic sort of garbage in, garbage out that you hear.
Oh, we have a term for that. It's called GIGO, GIGO. Yep.
That's kind of a truism, but it's still a thing. It's super important. And so I'll say this is really true. Data quality is absolutely core to any AI project. If you don't have clean, deduplicated, well labeled, enriched, well defined, plenty of metadata content, you put your AI trying to solve a problem, you're just going to get partial answers, hallucinations, bad outcomes, right? So there's a really, it's like it's like peanut butter and jelly relationship between data quality and effective AI. You really have to have one for the other, right? So that's a super important relationship. And actually, Melissa's published a number of papers about AI hallucinations and the risk of AI hallucinations. For example, in healthcare, you can get a really confident AI suggestion. Hey, that person wants to take that pill at 50 milligrams, right? And so if you're following that generative AI outcome, well, the patches are the ones that work at 50 milligrams, not the pill, right? But
Mm.
the AI is just kind of mixing this up. Maybe there wasn't sufficient labeling in the original data set, right? It's making some bad correlations. You can have an overdose.
Actually, the way you say that, Bob, if you just blindly trust what the AI is saying, you get in a lot of trouble out there.
That's right. That's right. So you really, and there are strategies to avoiding hallucinations, and Melissa can help you with that. But one of the core strategies upstream is good data quality, right? So that's a really core strategy. And also focusing on the real world expertise when you're beginning an AI project. Like you don't want to start an AI project and ask the AI to be your expert, right? To go in and create new business rules and solve problems for you. If you don't have leadership that at least who understands what kind of results you expect, right? What do you need? This is where Melissa's very strong with 40 years of expertise in the space, right? In the data quality space. Rather than asking AI to solve all of the data quality challenges, we simply need to ask AI to call the rules that we know, right? And this way you're going to avoid hallucinations. We could go deep into that. And, this is starting to get a little technical, but essentially, there's a strong relationship between data quality and AI and also business expertise in effective AI. And I'll say you need both, right? So there's a little start.
So, so I know you touched on the AI hallucination. So I wanna continue that a little bit more. Um, so what are some strategies? I know you mentioned one earlier, very very briefly. But what are some strategies that you use or the industry is aware of to avoid AI hallucinations? Because that sounds like it could be pretty dangerous.
Right, right. Yeah. And I was sort of just starting to get into that. So that's a great next question. Thanks for that one, which is maybe it's useful to talk about what's been ineffective for a minute. And
That's
so
good.
some what's been very ineffective, I'll call a whole cloth generative AI project, right?
Say
Where
that one more time for us, Bob.
like a whole cloth, you're just starting, they call it starting from whole cloth, right?
Oh, okay.
And in other words, for example, if you're a little company or even a big company with a focus area like Melissa, we've been around, but we're data quality experts, right? So we're not trying to develop our own big GPT model, a big large language model, right? I wouldn't
Right.
recommend that for anyone. Let the chat GPTs, let the Anthropics, let those experts do their work. But there's a next level of whole cloth, which just means trying to create from scratch. Companies that are asking whether they're really the most advanced large language models, the GPT, the generative transformers, they're asking that AI to create a business for you from scratch. That would be like you want to say, "Dear AI, I need data quality. Please do profiling for me, do deduplication for me, do cleansing for me." That model will try to do that for you, right? Because it's that's designed to try to answer your questions. It's going to run off and apply all kinds of crazy vector correlation math to solving that data quality problem, and you're going to get all kinds of trouble. Okay, so this is trying to create a business out of whole cloth using generative AI. You're going to have trouble, right? But now, so that's where you get hallucinations and big expensive failures, and you can read articles about that stuff. But here's where you have real success. We call it tightly targeted vertical AI. Some people might call it narrow AI. You could call it expert. And this is where and I love Melissa and what's happening here. So I'll talk about Melissa a little bit. If you take an existing model that's a reasonably competent, they call it a large language model, it can communicate with you, it can try to answer your questions and do things, but you just train it narrowly on, they call it a constrained environment. Like, dear AI, I just want you to look at all of these well-defined APIs for business rules that Melissa has created for data quality, right? And understand what those mean. And I'm going to create a context model. It says this is where we work. This is the kind of outcome that we expect. All that can be tightly defined in a vertical AI environment where it's being defined by the people who've been working that space for decades, right? And who already know the math that needs to be applied to solve the problems or whatever the algorithm is, whatever the business rule is, right? Teaching an agent to call the right resource, that is something that we can do with high confidence. And we can track back and see what happened. So you log into your data quality suite environment or your Unison environment, your data quality environment, and a little agent pops up and says, "Hey, we've got some data sets. Would you like to run a little profiling? Would you like to do a little cleansing?" You say yes. It knows where to go, and it gets a validated algorithm that you know is going to give the right result, right? And it calls that for you, and it says, "This is what I did for you." That can really reduce time and effort to move through data quality projects, to let someone who doesn't really know how to do that job learn how to do it. So you don't have to have a PhD data scientist to get started. You can have a reasonably intelligent, college graduate or whatever that may be. So that what I'll call really tightly targeted vertical or expert AI, that's going to be successful over the next 10 years. And that's kind of the way we're going. Yep. So I hope that's helpful. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Bob. So sounds like what you've been saying this whole time is an integration of data quality and AI, and you basically not everything. What is it? What's the phrase? You learn how to use a hammer, so you think everything's a nail, kind of that thing. And so now AI is out in the world, and everybody's trying to stick AI on everything. But really, what you're saying is AI is good for what it can do, but using the right tool, like you need a data quality, using the right data quality suite combined with AI calling that tool to do the tool portion, and AI taking that data and funneling it towards other downstream processes. Just like you said, okay.
Another area where I'm really happy with Melissa is there's a developer portal. Like Melissa offers a developer portal, and a big project that I know Phil Matino, the CTO, has really been sort of happening within Melissa is open API alignment. So defining all of the business resources that Melissa has created over the past decades, really according to the current standards for development. So you as an engineer can go tag on to those resources, Daniel, that we know they work. Those are validated data quality algorithms. Attach your AI to those resources and you're going to be flying. Yeah.
Right. So with the open API specs that we've recently put out for all of our cloud API on the developer portal, that allows all these AI tools. What do you call it? like on Hugging Face, right? You see these different modules in the chain. You can add the Melissa into your chain and use it as a validated resource. Melissa itself is not the AI, but AI is calling it so that you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel within the AI environment.
So you can think of AI really actually as a sort of ambitious, really wants to please you assistant, right? You're not going to ask that assistant to be the expert, but you can say, "Hey, go get that book that I need, and here's the math, and run that math on this problem." You see, so and it can do a great job at that. Yeah.
So that sounds like a good workflow, yeah, that you're talking about for AI. What's and we talked about ineffective ways to do it, like when a business just tries to do everything in AI. Like you said, AI start my business for me. But really, what you're saying is AI is a great assistant that find the right tool for the right job for my business.
Right. And this is also where working within a useful existing vendor environment can be important. So if you have an environment where that you do have all of the accessible APIs to solve a problem, you have maybe a data federation tool that brings the content and makes that available. Like Melissa has worked with Redox in the past for healthcare data federation, is working with CData now for broad data federation, right? So if you have the ability to call the data, call the resource, have an environment where you can get results, then you can actually set up workflows in a way that's really this is actually one of these big market changers. It used to be you'd have to use these pipelining tools like Talend or Nime, KNIME, these sort of big Gothic, really trying to make it easier, but still really challenging to create workflows, right, that move across pipelines. And that was the way I did things and the way that we did things back in the 2010s, right? But now you can get a little agent pops up and you say, hey, run the profiling and then, or maybe, do some field typing on this data, then do some deduplication, please. And then can you run a profiler and let me see what I've got, right? And that's a workflow, but it's a lot easier than installing Talent and creating that workflow using visual programming or whatever you need to do, right? So it's a real time and efficiency tool.
Wow, Bob, you just said back in the 2010s. It sounded like so long ago, but
I was
it's
just gonna
actually
say the
not
same
that
thing.
long ago. It's just the last decade, really.
Yeah.
And with your experience and background, Bob, you've probably seen really accelerated growth and changes in the AI space just this past decade. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that is an interesting yes is the short answer. And even the last 5 years, it's one of these asymptotic curves. The growth is really changing, and the models are getting smarter. So there's being more built in around what they call inference and reasoning to help avoid hallucinations on models. So that's happening at the model level. Um, oh, and there are these great tools for development. So we talk about the developer portal, right, that you can access at Melissa. But then there are these resources like LangChain. I think you were mentioning chaining. You can where you can sort of create the application for AI using that tool. There are other resources like Prompt ML that kind of help you with your AI prompt development over time. And there's a lot happening. Even so, I feel very confident that one thing that's going to be important for at least another decade, if not longer, is actual expertise based in time and experience, right? That's where the 40 years of business rules for all those functions we talked about, they're not going to become more accurate because of AI, or they're not going to probably be more efficient to deploy. You see what I'm saying? You got something that runs pretty close down in the to the library code base. You want to be applying that AI to business expertise. That's where human knowledge will continue to be important, right?
Hey, Bob, you just said something that, I thought about two things about what you were just saying. First, AI. I actually have a little acronym for that. People say artificial intelligence, but I like to say the other side is actual intelligence. So really, it's one and the same combined together. We're taking actual intelligence, combining it with artificial intelligence, and that's what we're going to get for moving forward. We cannot just swap one for the other. It's both.
And there's a lot less AI without the real I or the actual I, right? And 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 so we're kind of exploring this, something that like Greg and I are talking about. And Daniel, I think you created something you call Data Quality Expert. Is that right? A little
Data quality
fax
expert.
tool. Was that?
Oh, I contributed some stuff, but I think that's more on the front end side.
Uh, well, so we're also considering you call that expert AI, expert intelligence. In other words, you need the real I for the AI to be useful. Yeah.
Um, one other thing, I know this is a little bit off topic, but I wanted to ask for your opinion, Bob, because you mentioned a word and I understood what you said. You said it's like an asymptotic line over the past 5 years, but mathematically, an asymptote approaches and never touches the axis. Are you suggesting that there's a wall to this AI development that we cannot cross over a threshold, or do you mean exponential growth instead?
That's great. I love that's really I actually think there's a mystery there at the edge. And so I'll
We don't know.
say asymptotic in a meaningful, using that word meaningfully, in that there are questions about where this is going. And some say singularity, the emergence of global self-aware computing. Like who knows what happens if we're actually getting to an endpoint, right? And
Mhm.
so, but continuing improvement in and this is really challenging stuff. Now I'm getting into the big sort of pundit world, and I'm not claiming to be one of these pundits, but whether or not a lot of human labor may not really be needed in 10 or 15 years. The capacity of these models to know what tools are available and to be able to apply them usefully may just continue increasing to a point where our job becomes more what do we really want, right? Rather
So
than how do we get it done. We've got these smart agents who are out there just trying to work for us. But where that touches, I don't know, Daniel. You get what I'm trying to say with that?
No, that's why you said asymptotic, and I thought about it. I'm like, well, so is there like a wall that we don't know what's on the other side? Will we breach it? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a we're getting above our pay grade, I think, but
That's
they
right.
become interesting philosophical questions. Yeah, but
Yes,
where I
this
am
is
excited
philosophy.
is data quality gets to be a lot easier. So what used to take a week of a data scientist can take an hour and a half from a smart high school graduate or college, early college student. That
Mhm.
that means something for all of us in business. What that means, we're going to have to decide, right?
Mhm.
But really, we could say exponential increase of in efficiency and capacity. That's coming. It all has to be grounded in data quality.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that we're not getting away with that, but we can apply AI for DQ. And so even that should become much more efficient. Yeah.
So you talk about data quality again and again, and we all know that everything starts with good data, right? So when you're working with AI, what are some common things that you see, some problems that you've seen over and over again, and taking that into consideration, what things have you seen in the AI world that you think is cool, right? Like what's something cool that you've seen people do with it with good data?
Yeah. Well, so those are two pretty different questions. One is kind of problems and one is cool. Uh, and I'll
Or you're
say,
trying to, solve cool problems.
yeah. Well, I want to get into the problem space, and some of that problem space is just tedious. Okay, so just to be clear, and that's where things like having a lot of duplicate data can really bias the training, right? So suddenly a company is really trying to sell something but actually only a fourth of the market wants, but they think three-fourths of the market wants it, for example, right? So if you've got a lot of redundant data, duplicate data, that can really ruin the outcome of what you're trying of your that's called you'll get hallucinations or bias, right?
Right.
Um, if you have data that's not well labeled, that kind of goes back to that healthcare problem. If you don't have really good, well, richly labeled metadata, you may be your AI agent who's really trying to help you out may be offering a prescription for a pill at a dose that would be appropriate for a patch. If the data is not well labeled, it's not going to know the difference, right? So duplicate data, well labeled data, metadata enrichment. If you're missing a lot of information about let's say the customers you're trying to talk to, then the AI can't tell you that there's an opportunity there, right? So missing content, poorly labeled data, duplicate data. I'm just starting to go down the list for how
Mhm.
data quality can kill your business and particularly your AI enabled business. Yeah.
It's exactly kind of what we've already covered multiple times on this podcast about how clean data at the get-go is the right way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Clean data at the get-go is the right way to go.
Yeah.
That's our new motto.
That's my new motto.
Yes, that's our new motto. But right, so Bob brought up if you're labeled incorrectly,
Yeah.
addresses, you label the components incorrectly, well,
Yep.
you got to fix that with an address verification software.
Yep.
You're missing data, Bob said, well, you append. You
Yep.
can append from data sets
Yep.
using various services, data quality services, data enhancement services. And then that foundation work of DQ,
Yeah.
then you can build AI on top of that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's everything we're talking about. It's you can't. It's not a divorce. It's an integration AI with DQ, not
Yes.
to replace it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Bob, let's talk about the future a little bit. We talked philosophically about the future, but let's talk practical. What are we doing? What are you doing at Melissa to continue innovating or improving? What's Melissa doing with AI in the AI realm? A little bit future thinking.
There's a lot of really cool stuff happening within Melissa. And the first thing I want to do, think I did a shout out right early on in the beginning, but I do want to give a shout out to Phil Lubitich, because a cool thing at Melissa is that AI forum. It's really cool. So we're getting all of the engineering kind of lined up on basic concepts, frameworks. A lot of the engineering teams now are moving through this LangChain tutorial for AI for LangChain together. So it's just a fantastic. And if you're not doing that in your company, you're missing the boat, in my opinion, because the efficient engineers who are already learning this are software engineers who know how to apply AI to their engineering. So this is valuable at multiple levels. At the business consumption level, that AI for DQ that we're talking about, if you want to run your data quality workflow, it'll be a lot more efficient with this next release, let's say of Unison with data quality assistance, right? Just forward looking. There's a lot of good development. The Open API initiative within Melissa is sort of the foundational work, right? That's a really important foundation. But then there are really interesting agentic development occurring within Melissa. And that's that kind of vertical expert type of model we're talking about. So there's a group that's working with something called Cicero and applying natural language processing to learning all about let's see if I'm getting this right, like political transitions and opportunities, right, for people who are interested in this sort of thing. Bud and I are actually having a really interesting project that we're going to be talking with Ray about. This is a little. I don't think I want to name it because it's sort of at
Right.
that C-level discussion project about applying a data quality assistant within a sort of unified data management environment. Call it a master data quality environment, right? Master data quality management (MDQ), where you'll have that agent that will move you through those workflows really elegantly, right? This is in discussion with Ray. Although John Miller did create a nice plan for that. So this is sort of cool stuff that's happening. A unified lower code environment with an AI agent that can move you through your data quality workflow so much more easily without having required upstream engineering. You just install and run. So that kind of stuff is happening. And then there are also really cool things just happening inside the teams, like again, our own Bud Walker created a really cool vectorized compliance database, right? Up with Gemini inside, and he put some really tight what they call RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Just making sure that context constraint and result constraint information, and he's getting really high quality compliance answers out of Melissa's back end now in literally seconds. What used to take maybe half a day to get that.
Well, you know why, right? Because those were tedious things to do.
Exactly. So all that kind of cool stuff is happening. And I think it's the coolest thing is if your time and effort is being freed up to focus more on your business goals rather than that tedium, right?
Mhm.
That's where I see the highest value. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like we could keep talking about this all day,
Yeah. Well, if we were all AI, we could.
but we're not. I mean, we are AI,
Yes.
actual intelligence.
Yes.
And therefore,
Yes, and we
We
get
cannot.
actually hungry.
yes. But no, I think this was a great topic. I think we learned a lot from you, Bob. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience and your expertise. I can't wait to see what more we will do, here at Melissa and everywhere else as things progress with the AI world.
And Bob, AI changes so rapidly. We might need to talk to you again to see what's changed in the last 2 hours.
Well, I'm really hoping in maybe as little as 3 or 6 months, there'll be some more exciting news about some things that are kind of in the works.
Yeah.
So I'd love to come back and chat more. And I do want to do a quick kind of on the way out. I just am excited about the prospects for Melissa. This combination of really deep knowledge in a field, which Melissa has created over time, and then sort of an active and dynamic, engaged AI strategy, which is coming through that forum and through some of my work and others. I think that this is going to be a great, 10 or 15 years for Melissa. We're just going to see really deep advances in efficiency and power for data quality, and you're going to need that for your AI. So that's a little pitch I'm throwing out there. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Bob, for your time. Mr. Bob Stanley, Senior Director of Special Projects here at Melissa. Thank you for coming and talking with us. And like you said, I think we'll be speaking with you again.
If you like this type of content and you want to see more, please make sure you like and subscribe so you'll be notified when we post new videos and so that we can reach out to other viewers who would be interested in learning more about data.
We'd love to hear from you. So email us at podcast@melissa.com, find us on LinkedIn, subscribe, leave us a comment or a review. Tell us what you want to hear more about, and we'll get Mr. Bob Stanley back and we'll talk more about it for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Until next time.
Stay data curious.